If you've been hearing that Alberta's real estate market is slowing down, then you would totally expect that Cochrane Alberta's real estate market is following in the same trend, but that's just not what the numbers show. Homes are taking longer to sell, buyers have more options than they did a few months ago, but prices are continuing to rise. Is the market slowing down or is it still outperforming? We're going to dive into that in this video. So hey, I'm Reed, and if you're new to this channel, I break down Cochrane Alberta's real estate market, and I go past the flashy headlines, past the clickbait titles, and past the complaining on social media to break down what the actual numbers tell you and what I'm seeing out in the market as a performing agent in Cochrane, Alberta. So let's start with the big picture. June actually saw a slight pullback in sales numbers compared to May of this year. However, we are still seeing higher levels of sales than we did the year before. So far in 2026, we've seen a total of 569 homes sell, which again is more than this time last year, which is a very encouraging sign if you're watching the market as a seller. At the same time, June saw fewer new listings hit the market, so we avoided a flood of new inventory that would have caused this whole conversation to go a completely different direction. Because of that, the sales to list ratio remained higher than 60%, which is a sign of a really strong, healthy market here in Cochrane, Alberta. Now, the number that gets everybody's attention, inventory. With the slight pullback in sales and still some moderate inventory growth, we did see our months of supply jump up just above 3 months. Typically, that balanced market sits between 3 and 4 months of supply, so we're not fully into a buyer's market, we're just sitting in a really healthy place for Cochrane's market. And here's the question that's surprising a lot of people. If sales numbers are down and inventory is slightly up, then why are prices still climbing here in Cochrane, Alberta? Now that answer is pretty simple. Even though the inventory has improved slightly, we still have not seen enough of a flood of inventory over the past couple months to put enough downward pressure on the prices in Cochrane. And with that, we've seen now 5 months of price growth here in 2026. And with that, the current benchmark price here in Cochrane is about $580,000. That is still just under 2% lower than last year. But as we've seen that steady rebound of prices here in 2026 versus a skyrocketing of prices like we saw 4 or 5 years ago during COVID, the market is doing a really healthy growth in price, responding to the demand, responding to the inventory changes, but we're seeing a positive growth in prices throughout this year. So as we move throughout 2026, I do expect that benchmark price to kind of level off and probably even surpass 2025 levels at some point. Now let's jump into one of my favorite stats to look at, especially if you are a buyer, but it's also super important if you're a seller, and that is days on market. How long is your home going to sit there before it sells? Or as a buyer, how long do you have to view a property and potentially make a decision? Right now, the average days on market in Cochrane is about 53 days, but that really doesn't tell the whole story. In order to do that, we really have to break it down into its subcategories. Detached homes are moving the quickest here in Cochrane at about 47 days on market, followed by condos, which is surprising at 55 days. However, there's just not as much condo inventory, so that answers that question. Because if you're paying attention to Calgary's market, you know that condominium market or apartment style buildings in Calgary are seeing one of the biggest hits in Calgary's real estate market right now. In duplexes, they're taking about 65 days. And the reason for duplexes taking a lot longer than the detached homes is there has been a real big increase over the past few months on builders building a lot of duplex homes. So there's a lot of new construction listings and a lot of off-market available properties with those builders that we're not seeing the numbers for. Finally, bringing it up with the highest number or highest days on market is townhouses. And this could be broken down into 2 categories. I didn't do that for this video, but townhouses with condo fees versus townhouses without, you will generally see a much higher days on market for townhouses with condo fees because it really affects the buying capability of those buyers. And by removing the condo fee equation in the lending, chances are you can buy a bigger townhouse with an attached garage, or you can get into the duplex market for the same amount of lending power that you have because you're not eating up some of that with the condo fees. But here's the statistic that I think really tells the full story. With inventory rising, does that mean buyers are getting a better deal here in Cochrane, or are sellers holding firm? The answer to that is the sellers are pretty much getting almost what they're asking for. The average sale price compared to list price ratio is about 98%. And that's a pretty good number when you're listing your house for sale. So for buyers, keep in mind that while there is some negotiating power being in a balanced market, you're not seeing a bunch of fire sale deals that one would expect with rising inventory levels. Now, if we break it down a little bit further and remove the this listing had a price reduction and look at the sold price versus the original list price before any price corrections, that number is still sitting at 97%. So even with the properties doing slight price reductions, typically when that price reduction happens, they're closing really tight to their new list price. Now, what does that all mean? It means that there is still sellers putting their homes on the market to try and test and see if they can get a higher value. And then as the market answers and says no, they're making price corrections. Well-priced properties are still selling quite fast and moving very quickly. In fact, in the last day, there's been multiple properties that have hit the market and gone pending the very next day because the home was just priced correctly for the market and buyers reacted to that. So with that, that's one of the biggest differences as a seller between selling your home quickly and taking, 45 days to sell your home. That initial pricing strategy is super, super important in a balanced market. We're not protected by the COVID level seller's market where you could list your home and as long as it was in good condition, you were going to get multiple offers. We're just not there. We haven't been for over a year now, and we really need to have those conversations as we work together when you're looking to sell your home. So let's break it down even further. As a buyer, right now, this is a really good opportunity. Mortgage rates are stable right now, which is helpful because you can shop your financing and things aren't changing month to month, but there's also more inventory than we've seen over the past 4 years. And with Cochrane being so desirable, being close to the mountains, you have more opportunities to find something that suits your lifestyle, suits your budget, and fits your family's needs or your needs inside of Cochrane, Alberta. Whether that be new construction or prior lived-in homes, there's a lot on the market. Now, if you're selling, it is still a good market to sell here in Cochrane. The age-old thing of is now a good time to sell or buy, I really don't believe in that question too much because the market doesn't dictate that, your life circumstances do. So when you are ready to sell, just know that if now is that time, it is still a relatively strong market. Homes are selling reasonably quickly as long as the pricing is correct, and you are getting pretty close to your asking price, again, as long as you are pricing your home properly. Now, that's not to say that the strategy is the same as it was 3-4 years ago when COVID was causing price jumps like crazy. You will have to make sure your house is clean and well staged and make sure we get good professional photos. And again, that initial pricing strategy is very, very important. But you're also not to the point where you're going to sit for 100 days hoping for a buyer. So right now, truthfully, the market is just rewarding realistic sellers who do a good job marketing their property, work with an agent that knows what they're doing, and prices the home accurately right from the get-go. So where do we go from here? As we move into the rest of 2026, the latter half here, there's 3 main stats that I'm going to be looking at. First up, does inventory continue to build? Secondly, are prices going to continue to climb? And finally, is the demand going to stay high like it has over this current spring market into the summer and maybe moving into the fall before the real slowdown in the winter happens? If those pieces continue to stay where they are and stay pretty consistent, I have no doubt that Cochrane is going to continue outperforming Airdrie, Okotoks, and Calgary in terms of its benchmark price growth and how the sales numbers are matching up over 10-year trends and year-over-year trends. So overall, June felt less like a market slowdown and more just like a sign that the market is healthy, it's moving in a good direction, we've got good demand for homes here in Cochrane, we've got good availability for buyers, and homes are still continuing to sell. So if you're wondering what all of this means on a more micro level in terms of what it means for your specific home or your specific plans, I'd love to chat with you more. We can set up a video call and go over your scenario and see if we'd be a good fit to work together. My contact information is on the screen now and it's in the description of the video. If you like this video, found this information helpful, and want to continue following along with the channel to learn everything there is to know about Cochrane, whether it be community tours, area knowledge, and market updates to stay in tune with what is going on here, hit like, hit subscribe, maybe hit that notification bell, and continue watching the channel for all that information on Cochrane, Alberta's market coming soon. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.